This podcast is brought to you by Viking Capital, your best friend in swimming pool financing for over 20 years.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Pool Magazine Podcast. Today I'm chatting with Michael Kaufman, owner of ProTuff Products, a top prosumer brand of pool cleaning equipment. It's a pleasure to have you with us today on the show, Michael.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Now, there's a lot of different options to choose from when selecting a pool pole or a net. The average lifespan of a pool net can vary significantly depending on a lot of different factors, including the quality of the net, how often it's used, the type of debris it's exposed to, and how well it's maintained. And the reason I wanted you to come on the show is because ProTuff kind of stands out when it comes to these three factors, plus a wild card factor in the value department. Right now, ProTuff is a top brand on Amazon and seems like you've got quite a following for your products. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey?
Yeah, it's actually quite interesting. I mean, I really didn't have anything to do with the pool category prior. I've been selling online since about 96, just out of college. It's really pretty much all I've done. I did a couple of years of teaching, but outside of that, I've been selling online. And when we entered this space back in 2014, 2015, it was really an aspect of I saw Amazon as being a really good platform for e-commerce sales, and it seemed that we needed to move that direction. And so then it became a question of, what sort of products would we want to sell? And ultimately, what it came down to was, what is a category that we can move into that has a gap in the market? And I've always looked at business in such a way as, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. So if it's a product, I'm going to make the best product I can make. If it's, service, I'm going to offer the best service that I can offer. And so what I was really looking for was the greatest discrepancy between that and what seemed to be already offered in the market, especially from the consumer side. And so when you're looking at Amazon, I was learning a lot about how to research the platform and those sorts of things. And ultimately, I settled in the pool category just simply because it seemed like that was a category where, unfortunately, the bulk of, especially the pool cleaning tools, were very commodity type products, very Me Too, fairly inexpensively produced, didn't really offer much in terms of a warranty. The reviews typically were just not really that stellar. And most of it was customers saying the product didn't last and the company didn't stand behind it. So it just seemed like we had a very unique selling proposition in that category, let's say, because we were going to be the only company that was selling in that kind of premium space and offering that kind of premium service.
Well, I could see that you've been wildly successful there. I mean, there are a few different things that stand out to me in terms of the products that you sell. They seem to be really geared well towards both consumers and pool pros alike. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Well, I think ultimately what it came down to for us was that I didn't really want to have two separate lines. It seemed reasonable to us that we would be able to sell into the pro market, but at the same time, because we were selling on Amazon, which is obviously a very consumer-focused marketplace, we had to really place our emphasis there. And so it ultimately came down to a situation where if we knew we were going to be trying to produce that premium product anyway, which is ultimately what a pool pro is going to need, it just seemed like a natural consequence that if we designed it so that a pool pro would appreciate it, and we offered the right warranty for a homeowner, then those who recognize that kind of ROI and that long-term investment strategy in terms of buying the products that they use would recognize that it was worth the price. And so, we just really just targeted that, top of the line, what's the best material that we can use, what features do we have to design into it so that we can make it as efficient as possible to use. And then we just pitch it to the consumer market as, look, this is what a pro would use. And so therefore, if you really want to be as efficient as possible, if you want to save as much time as possible, and you want a tool that's going to last, this is where it's at. So.
Well, talk to us a little bit about the materials and design considerations that make your nets and poles stand out from the competition there.
Sure. I think that the key to it really comes down to the fact that we're offering an unlimited replacement warranty requires that we have to look towards some of those more durable materials because honestly, if we don't, then it's just going to be a cost factor on our side, because as an e-commerce centric brand, when we're doing replacements for customers, it's not only the cost of the product, but it's the cost of shipping it to the customer. And so we have to account for that. So we can't really afford to have numerous replacements going out if we can afford not to. So ultimately, that's what's going to dictate our design constraints in terms of the materials that we use, whether we go with a more modular design so that we can replace parts as opposed to replacing the entire unit. So we're always going to go with, when we're talking about pool nets, we're always going to go with, a nylon type material, which generally is going to give much better durability. It's not going to tear when you're, pulling out, either heavier or sharper debris. You're not going to deal with issues like that. So whereas many of our customers will say, hey, maybe I normally would get, 1 or 2 or maybe 3 seasons out of a pool net. As a rule, most of our customers will get 2 to 3 times that life or more out of one of our pool nets. And then, of course, obviously, we have the unlimited free replacement, so they can always request another one. And that's going to carry through to all of our products in our line. We're always going to look toward those more durable materials so that we've got UV resistance and chemical resistance and all of that sort of thing.
So talk to me about any recent innovations or technological advancements that ProTuff has incorporated into their product line. I know you guys have the patented lock-right spring-loaded ring pin technology. I mean, how does that tech work, and how does that set your pulls apart from the traditional twist lock mechanisms that we see out there?
Sure. So in terms of describing how the locking mechanism functions, essentially within the locking mechanism, there are a couple of opposing rings, and on those rings are a couple of pins. And so there are 2 buttons that you would push, opposing buttons on either side of the locking mechanism housing. And when you press those, they separate the 2 rings, which then relieves the pins. And so along the sides of the inner tube of the pull are holes, and those pins insert into those holes to lock it in place. So it's a very simple to use mechanism, because all you're doing is just pushing those 2 buttons. The ring pins are spring loaded. So when you push those buttons, it pushes back on those springs, opens them up, and pulls the pins out. And then you can extend or retract the pull. And then once it pops back into those holes, it really can't move. So effectively, what we've created is a locking mechanism that essentially can be used on the fly. So you don't really have to stop what you're doing to make that adjustment, 2-handed, twist lock, changes. It's a one-handed adjustment. And honestly, many pool pros have gotten to the point where it's all one fluid motion. They can actually make that adjustment in the midst of the cleaning motion, which just speeds that process. And if you think about the number of times that, you would potentially change that length adjustment while you're cleaning the pool and over the various different, brushing and skimming and all of these different things, you can see how much time you would save when it takes literally a second or less to make that adjustment versus maybe 20 or 30 seconds or more, depending on how bad your locking mechanism is. So I would say that's definitely what sets us apart with the pole. It is more durable. We use a different alloy. The aluminum alloy we use is different. It's much thicker tubing, so it is a little heavier, but it is much more rigid. It's easier to work with, and of course, again, once the locking mechanism is in place, unless you intentionally release it, it's not going to release. So the other thing is that it's not going to slip. So any situation where you need to apply pressure, such as brushing or vacuuming or things of that nature, you can apply as much pressure as you want, and that locking mechanism is not going to break loose. So, it's easier to scrub those stains loose. It's easier to apply the pressure that you need. And so, pros and consumers alike just really appreciate that.
Yeah, really forward thinking in terms of the design that you incorporated there. I mean, it's something that is very useful in terms of how cumbersome it is to work with these poles. Can you talk a little bit about Derek Henry there?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you bringing him up, because Derek has really been just a tremendous partner in this. So when we started, the first product that we released was a pool net, and we sold that for a number of years before we broke out into some other products. And one of those products, realistically, was Derek's pole. So this pole is not our invention. He is the inventor, and he came to us basically looking for a company that he felt was going to offer the kind of quality and the kind of service that he wanted to be able to offer with his invention. And we loved the design. It seemed like a really unique design to enter the market with. And so we partnered with him for, I believe we released it in 2019, and it's really been tremendous. He loves the fact that now he can kind of take some time to do, just the inventing thing. So we're working on some new product releases with him, and it's been really a good partnership.
Yeah, I mean, your poles are really known for their super simple length adjustment. I mean, can you describe the easy use and time-saving benefits that pool techs and homeowners can expect when using your products?
When you use a typical cam lock design, when you first receive it, when you first purchase it, for a time, it's generally going to work fairly well. But even brand new, the process is still one where anytime you have to make a length adjustment, because it's a two-handed adjustment with those cams, you have to stop what you're doing to make that adjustment. Even if the cam lock works properly, you're still talking about 10 or 20 seconds, to make that adjustment and then get back to whatever it was that you were doing, whatever cleaning you were doing. And then if you take that step back and you say, okay, well, wait, 6 months or a year, when that twist cam really starts to act up, it could easily take a couple of minutes to make that adjustment, because I can't tell you the number of customers that tell me they literally have to use, like some sort of a pry mechanism or a pipe wrench or something to release their cam mechanism, because the only way to keep it tight so it doesn't slip is to tighten it down so far that there's no way you can release it with your hands. So, when you think about the course of, if you go out to your pool and you're skimming and you're brushing and you're vacuuming, and all of these things, and you add that up over the period of time, you could literally save yourself 10 or 20 minutes per cleaning, just in terms of those length adjustment, savings. And so you carry that out over the course of an entire season or over the course of the entire time that you own a pool. That's a lot of savings in hours that you can put toward better use, playing with your kids or something.
Well, a lot going on under the hood there, Michael. And what I like most about your product line, I think, is the value that both consumers and pool pros alike get when they're buying a ProTuff product. And maybe you could speak to that a little bit.
Well, I think, it's easy to buy an inexpensive pool product. They're all over. And especially now, and especially on Amazon, with so many Chinese sellers that have kind of infiltrated that market, you can go buy a pool net for $10 or $15. But the reality is that it's not going to be very durable. You can't build much durability into a product at that price. And you're going to have to buy it again. There's not going to be a warranty. So you may buy another one before the end of the season, and certainly you're going to buy another one before the next season. And so ultimately, with our warranty structure, which is literally unlimited free replacement, we have a system where we do sell at a very premium price. Let's not pull any punches. We're not selling a $10 or $15 rake. It is considerably more expensive. But if you expect that you're going to own your pool for a considerable period of time, the price that you pay for one of our rakes, we've got customers who the initial rake that they purchased has lasted 8 or 9 years. Now that's not common. 2 or 3 years is probably more common. 4 to 5 is still not terribly uncommon. But the reality is, after that time, we'll replace that for free, and we'll replace it again for free. We don't charge any shipping. We don't ask for any proof. You don't have to explain what happened. We just send you a new one. So, if you look at it as an investment instead of just an expense, then it's easy to see, with just a couple of replacements, you've easily made back your money, and then any replacements you get beyond that is all gravy.
Well, I'd like to speak to this for a minute. To pool pros, honestly, guys, you're going to be using a pole all season long. It's going to be in and out of your truck, in and out of the backyard. Things happen. It's a comfort to know that, you can go and replace these products with a minimal amount of headache, zero friction when trying to put in a warranty claim. And that's peace of mind. What also pays off is they have a 50% off product replacement there for anything that you need on the commercial side. So for you commercial techs out there, it really makes sense.
Yeah, and just to clarify that even just a little bit further is that even though it is for full product replacement for a commercial user, it's a 50% off replacement for life, but parts are free. So, if it's a situation where you're a fairly handy individual and you don't mind replacing parts, which most pool techs are fairly handy, that's why they do what they do, then oftentimes a lot of your replacements are actually still free. So, it really does work out to your benefit for sure.
Well, you hit the nail on the head before with, it's not the cheapest product out there. And certainly, you have your options that you can choose. Go out and shop at Walmart if you want, or you can buy a product over at a high-end goods store. I mean, the question is, where are you going to get the best value? And that's why I wanted Michael to come on and explain a little bit about his product. Because I see personally enormous value there for pool techs.
I appreciate that. And I think, we really do try very hard to just make the process as simple as possible. I mean, it's one thing to save money, and hopefully people are seeing that return on their investment. I think most of our customers appreciate that. But ultimately, I would say that probably the part that they appreciate just as much or more is just the fact that it's easy. I mean, the number of times that somebody submits a warranty claim with us, and following the claim, we get some sort of an email, that really is just this kind of over the top. I can't believe how easy you just made that. What else do you sell, because we want to buy it? And that's the kind of experience that we really want to create, is that if we're going to build a brand and we want people to come back and we want people to refer other people, then you really want to create kind of that unbelievable experience. And so we actually have paid a fair amount of money actually for development of a warranty management system for our back end that ultimately makes it a fairly automated process. So in other words, outside of some very specific situations, if you log in to file a warranty claim, it's an automated 2-minute process, and that's all it takes. There's no proof, there's no photos, there's no evidence. Put in your Amazon order ID, put in the information in terms of where we're going to ship the product and what product or part that you need, and it basically auto submits everything, and it's done. Now, it's a little bit less speedy for commercial users, but we are working on revising that as well. So hopefully within not too much time, the developers should have it set up so that even for commercial users, it should be pretty much a 2 or 3 minute process. They pay their 50% or nothing if it's a part, and then they're on their way. So it's just a very simple process. We try to keep it as easy as we can.
I mean, I've gone through your reviews. You got a lot of positive reviews and great feedback there. And it looks like genuine pool owners who are just really happy with the product. What have been some of the most positive comments and feedback that you've gotten from customers regarding your pool nets and poles?
Well, the reality is, I think it comes back to what I've already said. I mean, I always appreciate when people reference the service that they receive from us, because it's one thing to produce a good product. I mean, there's a lot of businesses out there that produce a pretty decent product. I think it's far fewer the number of companies out there that have service to match the quality of the product that they offer. And so I think that's the thing that I appreciate the most, is when we read those reviews that talk about just how easy the process is, or if they ran into some problem, how much they appreciated the way that our support representatives have taken care of them and how respectful they are. I think that's probably the biggest thing that I appreciate most. But I will say, though, that when I run across a review, I mean, I mentioned earlier the couple of reviews that we had for our pool nets where they were getting 8 or 9 years out of the pool net. I realistically never expected that any of our customers would get that many years out of our pool net. I knew it was durable, but that's a pretty extreme situation. So I got to admit, I was a little tickled to read those.
Absolutely. I mean, how do your products ensure that you're maintaining a competitive edge out there in the pool equipment market? I mean, it's a really glutted market. There's products on the high end and the low end in terms of longevity and durability. But I mean, you guys kind of hit that sweet spot where you're in there just perfect for the pros and the consumers. And it makes it a really great prosumer product for both markets.
Well, I think ultimately the thing that helps us the most is that we really have kind of a 1-2 punch in terms of, let's just say, market research. One of the things is that because we know the Amazon platform so well, and because we have the ability with some of the back-end tools that we utilize to essentially mass analyze Amazon reviews, not only for our products, but also for other competing products on the market. It gives us a really good way to easily determine, let's say, what consumers truly are looking for when it comes to a product in this category. What are the things they're most frustrated with? What are the things that would make their lives the easiest? And then we get to go to our customer list. I mean, we have a very large customer list of very loyal individuals who love our brand. And so, when we reach out to them and say, hey, if we were to release a new product, what would it be? What are you looking for? They're very responsive. They're always going to give us the feedback that we're looking for. And better than that, we also have the opportunity of hearing from them, what features do they want? And then we can utilize that list as we're walking through the product development process. We get to use them as our beta testers. We'll just send them an email and say, hey, we've got a prototype ready. These are the features we've built into it. We really need some people to test this out. And, we'll always have, 100 people raise their hand and say, hey, I want to test it. So it creates a situation where I really feel like we just have a very good competitive advantage in that space because of the data that we can pull, not only from the Amazon platform, but also from our users in terms of their feedback, both before and during and post production of the product. So.
Absolutely. Because I know you said you were going to be putting out some new products, maybe with Derrick Henry.
Yeah. So one of the products that Derrick is working on, and I don't know exactly how soon we'll have it released, but we are working on a new filtration product that I think is going to be a unique product on the market. I think it's going to be really helpful to a lot of pool owners. And again, it helps. I mean, we have a lot of inventors that actually contact us, with interest in having us market their products. And so, not all inventions are created equal. Not all of them are going to be as useful as others, but it does create a situation where we have the opportunity to see some of those new ideas in the space that maybe other companies aren't seeing. We have, one of the tools that honestly is becoming an exceptional, tool in product development is actually AI and ChatGPT and a number of other tools that are out there that really, if you know how to use them, they are exceptionally useful in that process of not only coming up with new and innovative ideas for how to approach certain problems in the market, but also in terms of researching, what materials should you be using? And, because it's interesting, with those AI tools, if you prompt them correctly, and if you've got people on your team that really understand how to use them, you can use them as a product materials specialist. You can use them as a product sourcing specialist. You can use them as a product design specialist. And all of those individual specialties, if you ask them the right questions in the right way, you can get back some very creative answers. And it's very surprising oftentimes just how effective it can be in that process of speeding, the process of product development as you walk through that whole process. It's actually been a considerable help to us in recent months, and we're going to continue to use it and continue to flesh that out. And I think it's going to be exceptionally useful. I'm not using it behind the curve for sure.
I 100% agree. I mean, these AI tools are definitely offering some really creative and interesting, innovative approaches to streamlining workflow. We recently wrote an article about AI-assisted design tools where you're capable of putting in a few prompts and coming up with a really sleek 4K rendering of a pool design within seconds. It's great for dream building for homeowners. I think it's a pretty cool and nifty tool. And it's interesting to see how companies like you are incorporating AI into your own business process.
It's becoming a necessity without question.
Well, really interesting insights there, Michael. I appreciate having you on the show today. Thanks for taking the time to chat with us.
Thank you much for having me. I appreciate it.
That's all the time we have today. A big thank you to our sponsors, Viking Capital. They're partnering with pool builders to get homeowners the financing they need in real time and helping them close more pool sales. Make sure to subscribe and join us next time on another episode of Pool Magazine Podcast.